I'd like to welcome everyone to our school board meeting tonight. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us. Do we have any needs for translation tonight? Okay, doesn't look like we have any. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. At this time, we'll turn it over to our superintendent for recognition.
Yeah, we're excited this evening to have representatives from Lutakaga Elementary here, so I'd invite Principal Christina Benjamin forward. And I'm not sure if Paul is going to join her, but to talk a little bit about the recognition this evening.
Good evening. So here in public education, we get to talk a lot about the why. We have a lot of good people in our school district and across Lutakaga Elementary School who really take the why of what we do in public education to the next level. Here today, is this working?
Yeah.
Just going in and out? Okay. Today, we get to honor 3 individuals who create a group at Lutakaga called the Feedback Team. And they move beyond the why into really talking about the what and the how for public education. So we, as a feedback team, we take this piece of paper, which says, see it, name it, do it, and we take that motion action and we turn it into actionable evidence, impact, and resources and supports to support all of our kids. The team here, we have Rizalba Semlarone, she's our instructional coach, Marcy Gonzalez, she's also an instructional lead, and Mari Vela, she's our dean of students. And all 5 of us together every single week, we go into classrooms, we support our staff, we meet together, and we collectively talk about what we're seeing. We put a name to it so that we know what to do strategically and the next steps for it. And then we plan what we're going to do next. See it, name it, and do it. We work a lot on content and rigor. And when I say a lot, these ladies are in their office all the time trying to make the most rigorous content to put in front of kids, as well as making plans to go help teachers be the best that they can be in the classroom in the moment with kiddos. We also do a lot of student engagement, specifically with our dean of students. One thing that we do at Lutakaga, it's a term called being poolside. So if you ever think about a swimming meet, you see a swimmer in the pool. We are poolside with our swimmers, with our staff, with our kids. We're standing next to them as they're swimming, really looking at each stroke and fine-tuning it with them, along with them, instead of just in the stands looking at data with a stopwatch saying go faster, right? These guys here, they embody what it means to be poolside, and it really makes normalizing partnerships and collaboration at our school. So I just wanted to say that we see you, we name everything that you guys do for us, and because of you, we are able to do the work that we do because of the dedication that you guys have. I know I've missed a few things with what we do as a feedback team, so instead of using this microphone, let's use a different microphone. But do you have anything to add with what we do, why we do it, and maybe some evidence?
Start. Okay. I think what comes to mind right away is what Christina said about being poolside in partnership. And so as instructional coach and instructional lead at Lutakaga, something that is different for me personally is being poolside in classrooms and actually giving feedback to teachers in the classroom, whether that's right there in the moment or with an email after we walk away. And just knowing that that feedback that we're giving as instructional leads is going to our leadership team, and we talk about that feedback together every other Thursday when we meet as a leadership team, and they get to put that feedback into action. So it will sound like maybe a glow or an overall impression of what all of our feedback sounds like, and then they get to take that collectively and decide what are we going to do with that feedback that we're getting. And that's a really cool place to be as we're building collective teacher efficacy.
I like to call our team the proactive team versus the reactive team. So we work a lot together as we're doing these poolside views, right, and interacting and giving feedback with teachers and our teaching counterparts. It's just being proactive towards education, academics, but also in our discipline and behavior. It all ties together, and how we can get those things tightened up so that they all flow well.
I just want to say that, we're led by example, because I would say that at Lutakaga, feedback is a norm. Everybody gets feedback. Paraprofessionals get feedback. We get feedback, not just because we're standing here, but we also get feedback. And that just makes us grow. We always want to be better at what we do. And I appreciate that from our admin, because, like I said, that we're led by example. And every time they have a PD, they come and they ask for a feedback. How did it go? What do we need to change? What do you think we need to change because of the feedback that was given from teachers? So I just appreciate that, because that's the only way that we're going to grow and get better at what we do.
I would just add on that she hit it right on the head. Like, we all, it's just a culture and a practice of having feedback all the time, because we're always bettering our craft all the time.
So at Lutakaga, we're super lucky to get to work with amazing individuals like these ladies right here. This was a new model that we had for this year for providing feedback. Previously, with what this team is doing, it was solely Christina and I, and we were informed with them. They were still on our team, but what we have realized is that as good leaders, it's not about knowing everything, and it's not about going and bestowing all the knowledge that you supposedly know on people, but it's about finding the people on your team who really do have that skill and do have that credibility and knowledge, and putting them in positions to create success for your team. That's what a good coach does with any team that they coach. That's what any good leader does with the team that they have. And that's what we realized we needed to do with this team, is say, how do we mobilize them in a way at our school to really make good change and put their amazing skill set and knowledge into play? And we've been super ecstatic about the results that we've seen, and about the successes, and also about their willingness to go and put themselves out there in that way, and to do those things for our school. And so we can, we couldn't find enough words to be able to say how grateful we are and how lucky we are to get to work with people like them.
I'm going to use a good mic, you guys. I wanted to say that we're recognizing you for all the hard work that you've put in, for all of the support our staff get, and for all the success that our kids get because of it. But one thing that I want to make sure is also noticed is, with a tightness and a team like this comes some loss of autonomy too, and they've taken it so well, because when we meet all the time, we're calibrating on what we do in the classrooms or in front of our staff. It's not a he said, she said, Maudie said, Marcy said. It's none of that. It's very consistent across the five of us, because messaging is extremely important. So is consistency. That's how growth happens at an exponential rate. So thank you. Do you have any questions or thoughts?
I don't have any questions, but just knowing you three, I know you're excellent at your job and make impacts on kids' lives. So thank you for all that you do from us as well. I bought the flowers. Just kidding. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
How much can I more squeeze? Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Don't move. Smile. Thank you.
you guys so much for coming. Okay, now we're going to hear from our student reps. Do you guys have anything?
Okay, so I loved winter break. It was amazing. It was very much needed, and I'm pretty sure this applies to a lot of seniors. It gave us time to apply for scholarships and like that. Okay. So first off, there's a drill team competition this Saturday, January 17th in Spokane. It's their first competition. Okay, and then leadership has been planning. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. Leadership has been planning Husky for a Day, which is when like the 8th graders come and into the high school and they kind of like experience what it's like to be a high school student. So we're working on creating like assemblies for them, kind of like what we do to get their like Husky spirit, I guess. And then to make it even more like OHS student style, I guess, we decided to create a spirit week for them. So it's not just for them, but it's also for all OHS students. So if they come on January 27th, that day is going to be Husky Pride. So both the 8th graders and the high school students wear Husky Pride to like make it like feel like they are actually a part of us. And then on the other days, there's a different theme so that they feel like they're Husky. So we have upcoming March Madness. It's still in the works. We're not sure yet where everything's going. We do have a Spirit Week for that, and then Buff Puff. We have a Winter Formal, which is run by the junior class. And then, yeah, that's it for me.
When is Winter Formal?
February 7th.
February 7th? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for the first time in Othello history, our OHS cheer team is competing, and on January 3rd, the team went to Sunnyside High School and competed in the co-ed game day category, and we placed first place. Nice. First place, yes. And that is, thank you, that is a qualifying score for state. So we made it to state, and we were all really excited and super proud of ourselves because we put in a lot of work and a lot of sweat into every single practice. So state is February 6 and 7 at Battleground, Washington. That's
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll have board member discussion. When is your Spirit Week? Is it the week of the 7th? In February? Or when is your like Buff Puff and things you guys are talking about?
It's the 2nd through the 6th.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you end that week with the dance? Yeah. Okay.
On Saturday.
Okay. Board member discussion, we'll turn it over to Director Aaron Gerber for our legislative report.
Okay, we do have some stuff for legislative report today. Today was the first day of the legislative session, so all the lawmakers in Olympia got together today to argue, and they'll be doing that for the next 3 months-ish. So right before that, they have the legislative conference. The legislative conference, Dr. Perez and I were able to attend this weekend. That's hosted by 3 organizations, WASA, which is school administrators, WASDA, which is school directors, school board members, and then WASBO, which is the school business officers, which is what Sister Amy is for ours. We talked about a lot of things. It was kind of bleak, to be honest. They said there's a huge deficit, there's not a whole lot of money. Everyone's just hoping not to have their stuff cut. We went in depth on a lot of things, but this is kind of the summary. So I'm just going to talk about kind of some of the main things that they're saying are their priorities, the things that they want to focus on for this session and try to get for education. Number 1 was to increase MSOC funding. For anyone not familiar, MSOC is materials, supplies, and operating costs. So the funds that schools get for that from the state. They're wanting, obviously to get more funding for all the schools, so that's a big priority for them. The next one is is about exempt essential services. So what this is referring to, you may remember in the last legislative session, they raised taxes a lot. And when they did that, they assured educators that education would be exempt from those taxes, but then when they were interpreted and put into place, education was not exempt. So they were upset about that, and so now they're trying to go back and say, hey, you told us we were going to be exempt, and try to get that written into the new laws like they thought it was going to be. And then the third one was to pause any new unfunded mandates. For anyone unfamiliar with unfunded mandates is when they pass a law that says schools must do this, but they don't provide any funding for it. So they say you have to do this, and you have to do it from your own money that you already have. So we're trying to limit those, trying to get none of those if possible in this new session. Something interesting that they told us was that in the past, WASA and WASDA have been, they've only shown up to support certain bills. But that this time, because there's so many unfunded mandates up for discussion, they're actually going to start showing up to oppose bills, to say not just we like these ones, but we like these ones and we do not like these ones, and we are going to show up and argue against them. So that's kind of a change from what they've done before. So those are the three kind of big things that they talked about at the conference. I'm sure Dr. Perez has some things to add.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll add just a couple of items. Around the MSOC comments that Aaron provided, the amount that they're asking for across the state is $100 per student in a district our size, so it'd be about $430,000 in Othello. They were also very clear that they don't expect that they're going to receive that. There'll be something less than that, if anything. But no one in the room who spoke to us was very encouraging about additional revenues being available. The governor has been very clear that any funds in Washington are going to be used to cover other gaps around affordable housing, other initiatives in the state, not education. So that was a little bit of a downer. Additionally to MSOC, there was a conversation about utilities and insurance. Those are things that have gone up in your personal lives, but also in your work lives, perhaps, but also here at the school district. So there's some appetite for perhaps pulling those out and to their own category and providing funding for districts to pay for them, but protecting them a little bit in that they can only be used on these particular areas. So we'll see where that ends up, but people everywhere are feeling that pressure. Two other comments, I guess. One is about the funding model, just how they fund schools in Washington. We talked a little bit about it at McFarland this morning. We get 1.7 counselors, but we really need 3. There's a group of superintendents, and then a group of, they call it the Big Thinker Group, and then another group of organization folks. So 3 different groups in Washington thinking about ideas to alter the funding model. So think about funding schools in Washington the next 5, 10, and 15 years. We should be thinking, and it was encouraging to hear some of the ideas they have and how we compare to other states. It's not going to help us next year. It's not going to help us the year after. So those 2 things going on at once. But that was probably the most encouraging part, that people are trying to find a model that makes more sense. And then the last piece I'll share, I went to a training session on AI, and there's a lot of conversation about should we let students use it and those kinds of things. It was interesting there to see a bunch of adults trying to figure out how to use it to communicate clearly with the folks writing our laws about finance, and how do you leverage it and use it as a tool, not to be afraid of it. And so I think at this time that students are starting to become familiar with it, so are the adults. And I find some excitement in that process and in that work that's happening in Washington. So that was a real specific non-funding one, but it was about advocacy and how do you communicate clearly. I thought it was interesting.
So we had some legislators visit and speak to us. We had the lieutenant governor, is that what it was? We had the lieutenant governor come and speak to us, and they were all pleasant and everything, but it was really like, there's no money. So one of them even was like, I'm going to do some things in the session that you're not going to like, just try and be nice about it. It was, yeah, but that's a brief summary.
They're going to maybe pull some money?
I think there's definitely it sounded like going to be some impacts at higher ed. If you're a community college or a university or college in Washington, there's things coming. They also talked pretty clearly about early learning, so particularly TK. What I have heard in a smaller superintendent's group is transitional kinder slots in communities like Othello should be safe. There are some communities where we are considered a preschool desert. We don't have options, private options. I think we have one out of town, and the waiting list is, you better put your kid on 3 years ago. That's just the nature of it here. So they're hoping that those slots in places like Othello will be protected, but there are going to be cuts. I thought the number was 25%. It was a big chunk, and so taking away those TK slots, people were certainly nervous about that, and it's not going to be well received.
Okay.
Pete, how's that going to affect our, as we go, or some schools or districts go into teacher negotiations for contracts and all that? I mean, is the union really paying attention to this and saying, hey, or did anybody mention anything about that?
Yeah, I think certainly when you listen to an individual lawmaker get up there, you can guarantee they have a relationship with WEA and PSC. They're in conversations. Those people certainly know that. They have lobbyists that are there keeping their members informed. I think our own association here locally is well informed, and they understand the current context and climate. We saw some of that just north of us in Moses Lake, where it got a little contentious, but eventually where they needed to be. But all associations understand that that times are tight. What it becomes a matter of is how much pressure do you want to put on them on Olympia to, they don't say raise taxes, they say find new revenue, I think is the phrase they were using. There weren't plans to find new revenue, which they were saying we're not going to raise taxes, is what they were claiming. And we only heard from a couple of them. But some of the other things we should be aware of here locally are related to levies, because another thing we heard is in many communities you can have a capital and technology levy that's really like a blank check. In a place like Bellevue, where you have such a high value, with a small amount you can generate a lot of money. We're concerned about the state of our levy on February 10th. We're hopeful that people are going to support it like they have in the past, right? But could we tag another levy onto that? Would our community tolerate running a 50-cent capital and technology levy? We've never pursued that because we're not sure they have the appetite for that. Other communities do. And it was nice to hear those communities say, we don't think that's fair. We don't think it's fair that we can do it and you can't, and it's the obligation of the state to figure that out and to fund the things you need in your schools. Particularly from the Bellevue superintendent, it was really nice to hear his remarks, and he's one of the folks leading this charge about changing the funding model. You want to talk a little bit about weighted students?
Yeah, an interesting conversation that they had. He was who's the superintendent from where?
That was the Bellevue one as well.
Guy?
Yeah.
Okay, they had a conversation about how they would adjust your funding according to the students in your districts, like socioeconomic status. What else was factors in that?
Yeah, so if the state of Washington said you get this much for every student, but you have a student who is got special needs, we'll add this much. If you have a student that requires multilingual services, you get this much. If you have a student that's from a migrant household, different factors that said, we know you need more resources to do this work, and so the state's going to pay for those, rather than just having one amount for every student. And I believe he said we're one of only 10 states that doesn't have a weighted model.
Wow.
And they're looking at I think it was Indiana he mentioned, and one other state that has really been down the road on this, and so they're looking at some of those options to help encourage the folks in Olympia to be more creative.
Yeah, he talked about it like Washington was like way behind on that, because at least 40 other states do that, where they weight the students differently, and that affects your funding. So.
It's scary because if we remember when we were up we talked to those teachers from the other side, and they said, what did they have, 37 or 38 different families that spoke different languages, and that's crazy.
Aaron and I spent a day and a half at the same table for the general sessions and the meals with the superintendent, a board member, and another staff member from the Tequila School District, about half the size of Othello, but right up between SeaTac and Seattle. One of the most diverse school districts in Washington, and they have some pressures we don't. They have a lot of people that are homeschooling and private schools that are popping up all around that Seattle urban area, and their student count is dropping in lots of school districts in that area. And a place like Tequila with only 2,000 students, you lose 200, that's a big deal. So we did have some nice conversations about struggles everybody in Washington's having.
Okay, any other questions for Aaron or Dr. Perez? Okay. I don't have anything else on our board member discussion. Does anyone have anything?
I just wanted to add one quick thing. So we do have the levy coming up in February, something Dr. Perez and I had discussed. We wanted to ask about. We thought it may be a good idea to send someone to a city council meeting to make sure that they're informed of what's happening. They can ask questions about it to us, just so we can, as part of getting the word out there to everyone. What do you guys think?
I think that's a great idea. When do they meet again?
We can look into that.
Yeah, so we're going to confirm the next meeting date, and then if it conflicts with a board meeting, we'll assign a couple folks and figure out a strategy to get there. I think it's the 26th. The 26th, so right about the time the ballots come out, but we'll confirm that. And if it's not, is that the same night as the board meeting? So, yeah, we'll double check and see if we can get on the agenda somewhere where it would be nice for a couple of us to break away and share a presentation with them about the levy.
I would be fine if the rest of the board is okay with adjusting our time for our meeting that day, or having a really short meeting that day, or doing something so that I think it's important to be able to get to the city council meeting and get that word out.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
I was going to say, I'd be with Lindsay, and if we could maybe meet at noon and maybe the whole board, if we could all make it down there and be part of that, that would be awesome.
We'll figure it out.
6 o'clock. Yeah, it looks like it's on the 26th at 6 o'clock on their agenda. So let us think a little bit about the timing, and if we can do an early lunch meeting. I know that conflicts with Mariah a little bit, but we can talk about that, and we'll work on getting a calendar update, and then I'll connect with the folks at the city to make sure they have some time for us on the agenda, and perhaps I think they'd feel encouraged if a number of us attended. That's a good idea.
Are there any other civic groups that you're wanting to get the word out to?
Do you know any?
Oh, your microphone.
Sorry. Sorry. I was asking.
I don't think your mic's on.
I was asking, do you think there's any other civic groups that we need to get the word out to?
Yeah, we have a little bit of our strategy, and maybe we can. That might be a nice superintendent informational item at our next meeting to talk about what we've done so far up until that ballot arrival. So we'll do that next time we meet. But some of it has involved direct meetings with every staff member. So I think Dr. Meek and Amy were at 2 schools or 2 sites today. A series of slides that we have to share the information. We can also do that here at the board meeting on the 26th to share with what we're going to share with the city. We have a series of targeted social media informational pieces that'll be going out. Civic groups where Will Von Brock, our principal over at McFarland, he's been our representative at Rotary, but there really aren't a bunch of active ones in the community that we're aware of. So we've been focusing on getting the information to our employees and encouraging them to just share that information with their circles.
Pete, I would love to maybe put Josh in a hot spot. If I could put, there's a group of farmers that get together almost every morning. I'd love, it'd be great if you could come down and talk to them, because I'm sure that they'd have a lot of questions to ask if you would be up to it.
Yeah, if you get us the location and the time they meet, we'll.
I don't know, most definitely. I really.
Lucky.
They'll just drink coffee. You're
for
good.
An invite for 5 years, but it's okay. You go, Josh. No girls allowed, apparently. At this time, I'll accept a motion to approve required approvals.
I'll make a motion to approve the required approvals.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve accounts payable warrants 2.
I'll make the motion to approve accounts payable warrants 2.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. At this time, we have our superintendent informational item, so we'll turn it over to Dr. Perez.
Yeah, this evening we have a couple of updates. I know there was a board request for some information and updates about progress we're making at Othello High School, and then also with our athletics across the district. So Kat Atchison is going to share some information with you, particularly about the closed campus, and I hope you listen intently. And also, if the student reps have a contribution, I think this might be a good one for them to weigh in on.
Hello. So I'm here to give you an update like Dr. Perez said. I don't have a clicker. Okay, if you want to go to the next slide. So this is our data that was at the end of trimester 1. We just actually ran the last 2 weeks of December, and an update for you on that data. We ended up turning away 270 freshmen, 167 sophomores, and 283 11th and 12th graders today, because they were deficient in either academics, behavior, or discipline. One of the biggest changes that we had this last trimester, which we communicated out to parents, was when it came to tardies. If they were, especially their contract says that they sign for off-campus privilege, was if they're not back from lunch, if they leave campus on time and they're marked tardy, they automatically go to red. So that was a huge shift and change. And so lunchtime and the checkout process did take a little bit longer today because a lot of kids were, what, I can't go? And so our second lunch today was very scarce as far as who was able to leave campus, because our normal herd that goes up to the McDonald's area or Subway in that area wasn't there because we had that many kids who weren't meeting the mark. However, they are able to earn it back. So if it's academic stuff, we work with them where once they get their grades up, we'll give it back to them if it's midweek. But if it's behavior and attendance stuff, we say you have to earn it back in the 2 weeks. You can go ahead in the next slide. We are still serving our lunch numbers from when that I reported in October was running about 600, 700, or 650, 700. Those are pretty the normal range for lunches. We did have even one day where we served 900 lunches.
Kat, are you having trouble servicing that many kids with the tables and chairs that we have now?
The kids right now, what they've been doing, and luckily our weather has been fairly good, one of the additional changes or things that we're noticing on campus is the kids used to go across the softball field and play soccer, but they're now utilizing the baseball field and some of the back area. And so we have kids that will take their lunch and go eat and then go play, football, soccer, whatever the case may be. So they're finding creative ways to still be engaged or be active, or they are going into teachers' classrooms. And we did alert our lunch staff this past week, as well as our staff, to saying, hey, we may have some more kids that are trying to find a place to eat. But I haven't heard it didn't change the numbers for lunches today. The other thing, another update, and I know you guys are aware of this, and I have to thank Amy Suarez and the finance team, as well as our student reps and some others that helped coordinate and the redesign of our cafeteria so that we can try to accommodate. It's about 80 more students in the corridor cafeteria area, so that we can get more kids in there and have a more welcoming environment for them. We also, again, I was saying that checking out has not been it's been pretty seamless. When we have assemblies, because one, we don't fit in the all in the cafeteria or in the gym, but also just because of the dynamics of trying to do all the supervision around campus. We are doing 2 lunches from here on out when it comes to needing to do a weird schedule, just because of the supervision at lunchtime that's needed to ensure that we're keeping everybody where they need to be. If you'll go to the next slide. Parent communication, our counselors, our MSAs, and Mr. Tovar, they are doing weekly phone calls around the unexcused attendance, as well as matching that up with David's data around attendance that Josh keeps around regular attendance, and so they're calling every grade level and the parents with unexcused absences. They're doing a lot of conferences and inviting parents to come in and have conversations, and they give even a personal phone calls, and that's been pretty well received because it's a personal phone call saying, hey, we really care about your kid and we want to support however we can to try to limit the number of kids that we're taking to truancy court, and trying to meet every family where they're at. So some of those conversations have striked up, well, I don't want to go into the big campus because it's too big and I have anxiety or whatever the case may be. And so we're being creative as far as how are we meeting the kid where they're at and getting them in school and on time, and making some progress with credits by using the hub and the program supports that Tovar has out in the hub. One of the feedback was doing a parent letter with green, yellow, and red. And so from the feedback from the board, we did manage to create a letter that does explain in English and in Spanish if a kid is red, yellow, or green, and what are the thresholds so that the parents understand why their kid's red or why their kid's yellow. And so we've been sending those out on every 2 weeks with those 3 areas, and we let them know ahead of time whether or not their kid's eligible to leave campus or not. And then one of the things we had mentioned in October was because supervision and resources are stretched pretty thin at lunchtime, and it's all hands on deck at that point, we have worked with Sandra HR office and have a parent volunteer list, and so we're working through what do we need to train the parents on so that if we have them out, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, all of that type of stuff so that we can have more hands on deck when it comes to bringing in the community and having all eyes out. We are going to be one of our hot spots around behavior is tardies, and so we're going to be starting tardy sweeps here because they're still not that great. And so we're going to be tightening up some of our hot spots and starting to tell kids they got to get into class on time. But today was a big wake-up call for many of them. You can go ahead to the next slide.
Just really quick. So those parent letters, are those sent out on Parent Square?
They are sent out on Parent Square like a midterm report. And so it's just a template that says your kids, it has an opening statement, and then in the center it says academic, behavior, and attendance. And it'll say red, yellow, or green. And it's in the color because that was the feedback from our student rep. And then it has the thresholds down in the bottom. And then as we made the change for, because this was teacher feedback as well, ended up having it so that we sent communication out by saying there's going to be this shift, please be aware of this. And parents are even reaching out to admin about, can you help me understand why my kid's yellow in this? And so we can drill down, pull up that kid, say your kid was late from lunch or, didn't get to advisory or 4th period on time. That's why they got it.
And I'd talk just a little bit about the tardy issue because we saw an example of it today at McFarland. What do they do at McFarland right before the bell rings and kids need to be in class? What were they doing? And they were playing the music as a reminder, hey, you get to class. And the reason they did that is because the data told them, hey, kids are showing up late. And a consequence at McFarland eventually might be lunch detention if you're tardy a lot. That's a consequence there because it's a closed campus. And at the high school, I just want you to know, even though there were a number of students on there today, and we're not going to lower the bar. We still need you to be in class on time, and you can still see your friends at lunch. You can still have a conversation. It just might not be in the car. It might not be on the way to McDonald's. It might have to be in here because when you leave, you didn't come back on time, and we need you here on time. So I know there's this process. What I really appreciate about the way the high school has approached it, there's been stages and iterations, and here we are after winter break. That's the next stage and next level. So I just wanted to call out that connection we saw today.
Well, and we've discussed, MMS has the bell or the music that plays before. We would love to do something like that, but one of the challenges that we have is all of the buildings that separate each other, there are no speakers. So if we were to run the music, you can't hear it if you're outside oftentimes. So like trying to do the 1 minute warning, if you're in like Husky Court and there's no speakers, you wouldn't be able to hear the 1 minute music to say you need a hustle. But we are out there saying you got 1 minute. We're standing out in the parking lot when we see kids coming back. You got 1 minute to make sure you're in class on time, and you'll see the kids pick it up.
And if I remember correctly from the last time we had a conversation or you were here, you said this time during the year, this winter / the tardiness did get worse and the absences were worse, right? So.
Yep, and some of our behaviors have increased as well, and it's a typical time of the year that this happens. But one of the things in this process is because we know it's happening, we're going to be able to like prepare for it. What are we going to do? What are we going to have ready to go for the next time, so that next year we're hopefully not in this case and we can help bring those numbers down.
Do the students have any feedback on the parents' letter that went out?
No, but I have a question. So you were talking about how like if they went to lunch and then didn't come back, that they'd automatically go to red?
So if they are out at lunch and they come back and they are not, if they are marked tardy from coming back from lunch, they go to red.
Okay, but so what if it was excused? Or, well...
It's for tardy, so if it's an excused absence, that's not going to count against a student. It is for being tardy.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had to really distinguish between tardies and unexcused because it can blur the lines a little bit. We brought back this past trimester, this was something our counselors led, we brought back the honor roll, and so you might have seen on social media, we recognized our 10th graders because they have the best attendance from first trimester, and they're still rocketing it with attendance this trimester, and we brought back the honor roll with 3.0 or higher. We also put up signs, you may notice in our student parking lot, a student of the month, so we're going to be bringing that back for starting that in February. We're still working out logistics of how we're going to identify who's going to be student of the month, but they'll have a designated parking spot. And teachers are also sharing and giving us feedback that students are starting to advocate for themselves a little bit more in the classroom around, I got to get my grade up, what do I got to do? So it's all the responses that we want to have from students so that they can keep that privilege of leaving campus. Go to the next slide. One of the other pieces that goes with this is our success team meetings. These started off in October. We were sitting at about 2-hour-long meetings because we were trying to figure out the rhythm of our work and the rhythm of how those meetings were supposed to operate, and we're now down to about an hour, and we're just brainstorming what are our resources, what are our supports, like what are our hot spots, how do we problem solve and find ways to address the issue. Some of the one of the hot spots that we're trying to work through is we've discovered that, okay, parents aren't coming in at lunchtime and excusing them. They're now either excusing them during third period, or the kids are saying they have to go somewhere and they're hiding out during third period in their cars to avoid not being able to leave at lunchtime. So it's just brainstorming opportunities to go through what are our hot spots, the tardies, all of that type of stuff, and it's our counselors and admin that kind of have those conversations, and then if we have time, do some case management regarding individual students if there's some hot topics happening with students. Questions?
Do you guys still do the checking the OHS on the cars, if they have the OHS pass?
We're going to be doing another round of that just in case there's some kids that are coming and don't have their placards. But that would be one of the key indicators we've identified is if they're going to have the student of the month spot, they are also registered, and so that if someone else happens to park in that spot, we can make sure, or whoever it is, we can tell them you got to move.
Okay.
You can go to the next slide.
What does it take to get a parking pass?
It doesn't cost anything. You just have to provide license, registration, and insurance, and then just see security. And then we'll give you a little placard for the car. I've talked about many of these items. Tardies, we're starting those sweeps. We do have detention and that sort of thing, and so they help us pick up campus and that sort of thing. One of the hot spots for another hot spot is with our unexcused absences. We have students that have really bad attendance, but they come to school every day. So they're hiding out or down in our gym area or in other areas of the school. And so we had a conversation. It's a handful of students, but we've kind of intervened on their behalf because some of the social dynamics have kind of persuaded them from actually being in class. And so we've given them a smaller environment with more teacher interaction, with specific feedback, with regular, like, you're doing what you're supposed to in academics, with more recognition. And there's daily parent communication with these students. And it's an opportunity for them to, like, really teach them the behaviors and the expectations of this is how we need you to do school. And they can come back to if they want to join the bigger setting, they can at the beginning of third trimester. I'm trying to think, there was something else I was going to say and I just lost a thought. Go ahead and go to the next. So as you can see, I kind of shared this at the end really quickly, and we're still trying to understand what does this slide mean. And you'll notice at the bottom, you have the school interventions, which I've kind of shared with everyone around Mondays, late start, after school stuff. How do we pair that with what's happening in the classroom and being able to align our resources and our supports with what's happening in the classroom so that we're helping teach the skills that are happening in core content areas or all of our content areas. It'll be a slower process, but we'll be focusing on our core classes around trying to get into this rhythm of the work and how do we partner with our teachers and walk alongside them so that we're collecting similar data and we can ensure that we're reaching all of our students. Because as we look at our academic data, one of the things that we can pull out from our success team is, hey, we have this pocket of 10th graders. There's about 50 of them. They're really struggling right now. How do we get supports to them? One of the things, and have people really show up. We made 150 phone calls to our families this last week for today's Monday late start intervention. 40 had signed up, but only 5 showed. So how do we really utilize when we know the kids are struggling and then this English class, how do we really make sure we can really get that support and leverage our resources and support so that the kids are able to be set up for success in their class? So that's kind of the next phase of that, and it brings in our teachers into the conversation about how we can support them now that we have data, we have interventions and support for them, and really wrap around all of our kids moving forward in our framework. That's all I got. Do you guys have questions?
I just want to say thank you a lot. I'm the one that asked Pete if you could come in and give us an update, and I really, really appreciate it. But I am going to ask if you can come back in about another 2 months.
Absolutely.
To me, it helps us understand it a little bit more. Don't mean to put you in the hot spot, but you've come through for me because you've answered every question that I possibly had. I've actually gone out and sat in the parking lot and watched that group of kids all walk out, all walk in. I've seen David absolutely just...
We got a call the other day about some guy out there.
That's probably it. Yeah, it was probably me, not dropping off coffee, that's for sure. But no, and I appreciate it just because I don't know how you guys do it, because it's just a glutton of kids just running, headed into town, and then right back. And so,
well, I will tell you, it was quite a big shock for many of them. We had it. David was standing behind the 2 paraeducators who scan kids out, and they're like, "What? I can't go?" And their friends are going. And they're like, "Man, that really sucks." So just seeing their reactions, and it's like, wow.
You know, I like I said, I just thank you so much for the update, and we'll hope to hear from you here in a couple more months.
Yep.
Thank
Not
you.
a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Kat.
All right, appreciate that update from Kat and the team over at Othello High School. And there's been some significant changes there to the processes and the way they're trying to manage student flow, and appreciate the engagement from the board as well. Now we want to invite Carlos Gonzalez forward, our Director of Athletics and Student Engagement, and he's going to tell us a little bit about participation levels and how things are going related to eligibility, and I think it all pairs nicely with the story Kat was able to share.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just here to present some brief data on what our athletic numbers are looking like right now. If you can go to the first slide. Between McFarland and OHS, this is a quick breakdown of what we have for participation numbers compared to actual enrollment for the schools to show the percentage of students that are participating in athletics. And through the season, so we have fall and winter, and right now we're forecasting about 142 for MMS versus 316 for OHS. And when you add everything up over the 3 seasons, this means a total of 1,348 students. Now, that 1,348 could be students in 1, 2, or all 3 sports seasons, of course, but that's 1,348, which is a lot. And so these are good, healthy numbers, I believe. And if you go to the next slide.
Could we just stay on that slide for a second? Sure. I think this might be, we talk a little bit about talking points and communicating the story about the levy in our community. This might be one that you could share with folks. And again, it's just factual to say 1,350 kids are having experiences in athletics as a result of the levy. And that doesn't just include that one day for those kids. It's weeks of practice and team building and competitions and representing their school and their community, going to a cheer competition and being the first one ever. Those kinds of experiences really matter for our kids, and that the levy helps support those activities. So when people say, what do we do with our levy money? That's part of it right there, an important part.
I think that's absolutely correct. When you average those numbers between OHS and MMS, that's roughly an average of like 25% of our kids participating in sports. But that 25%, it doesn't equate to what we see in the community for how visible athletics is. Outside of the normal school day, I mean, everything revolves around our kids in our athletic program, whether it's wrestling, baseball, basketball this time of year, and especially for all the activities that we have in the fall too. And with spring coming up, that's our biggest season in terms of numbers and participation. And so even though it's 25% average, 7-12, it's so highly visible. And so I think it's important to mention that. In terms of the MMS athletics data, this is what I think this is something to celebrate. Every Friday, I do what are called, they used to be called grade checks, but now they're eligibility checks because we have thresholds for attendance, behavior, and academics. And I use Homeroom that Dr. Meek has been able to help me set up to use all the students that are listed in Skyward under activities, using these thresholds to flag students who are ineligible. And then I inform those students, whether it's at McFarland or OHS, that, hey, we're on probation and this is what it means. You can still practice, you can still compete, but you have a week to fix whatever it is, whether it's attendance, behavior, or academics. And so right now at McFarland, through 2 seasons so far, not one student has been suspended. And so our kids are doing a really good job of staying on top of it. I think that just comes down to good communication between the kids and the teachers and the students of where they're at. And if you'll go to the OHS data, it's still really strong data. I mean, we're talking 94 to 98% between fall and winter in terms of eligibility. And I would also say, looking at that data, it's trending in the right direction. As you can see, I would say, and this is just my own assumption, and you can make your own, but fall was a wake-up call for some kids, that the word is out and we have clearly defined thresholds that we're monitoring every week to help keep our kids on track to maintain their eligibility around attendance, behavior, and academics. And so that number has since decreased. And so now that we go into spring, even though with more participation, I'm hoping that the numbers will be the same or continue to fall in terms of students ineligible. And so good numbers so far. Any questions on that one?
I have a question overall. So this is such a huge workload for you. I've noticed I see Joey Villarreal doing some stuff, and someone asked me if at the away basketball game if Josh Tovar was like the representative for Othello High School. Can you talk a little bit about like who's your team, who's helping you, who helps manage showing up at stuff? Because I know you're just one person and you have to be at 15 places at once.
Yes.
So what does your team look like?
Well, the first person I would recognize and give thanks to is Coraima Torres. She's our OSD attendance secretary. She joined. We started in this department together. She is out of Yakima and has experience working in central office with ASB funds, and took some time off to be a mom when her husband earned a position here in our community. He was also now a coach in our basketball team with the girls. And she helps me out to learn this role. We're learning it together. She really is the one who helps me to really track and monitor final forms when it comes to eligibility for kids to make sure they have everything that they're supposed to have to be eligible. She also handles all of the all the money management in terms of ordering purchase orders, working with our finance office to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to in the most appropriate way. And then Joey is like my right-hand man. He helps me with event coordination, which is something that Pasco Schools uses and Moses Lake Schools use to have an event coordinator to assist me in doing in setting up concessions, setting up game workers for ticket takers or security, working with custodians that we're all on the same page and that we're all on the same schedule in terms of what's happening in the Othello School District. And my job really lives in the administrative side of it to make sure that the Othello School District, that first and foremost we're championing our kids, and that we're following everything according to the WIAA, all the league SOPs or standard operating procedures with the CWAC, and then making sure that everything is up to date in terms of scheduling, and that we have officials, and that transportation is set up, and that we're communicating through our new website, and that schedules are accurate. And everything on social media and with Facebook and Instagram on OSD Athletics. So I handle a lot of the administrative side of things, but there's still this expectation to be at games, which I do the best I can to be at every home game. And I've been able to get away to a basketball game and a wrestling match so far. But speaking of Josh Tovar, because he is a parent but also an administrator at Othello High School, he's offered and volunteered to pick me up and help me out at away games since he's going to be there anyway to support his son Drayden. So I mean, I'm an amazing team, but we're still learning, and because any mistakes we make in athletics in Othello are very visible. And so I work really hard to make sure that we are working really well as a team to make sure that all of our details are covered so that nothing falls through the cracks. And so even though mistakes do happen, we're always working as hard as we can to minimize them as much as possible.
Well, it seems like you guys are doing a great job, so thank you.
We're trying.
I know we've got some huge wrestling tournaments coming up, right, that we host and tons of schools and represent.
Yes, on the weekend of the 23rd through the 24th, we're going to have about 30 schools here for the Lady Huskies Invitational. And then the weekend after that, for the first time, we're going to be hosting the Washington State Wrestling Coaches Association Small Schools State Duels. I had to practice that. And so we're going to have about 16 teams here scheduled to be here that weekend of the 31st on Saturday. To host that event, and we'll see how that goes. And then after that, we go into postseason.
Can't let me know what the what the school looks like after that duel. I hear they're in the gym, in the corridors.
It's huge.
We're gonna do a wrestling match in somebody's room.
It's huge, literally like corridor, the main gym, the auxiliary gym. I mean, it's a huge event, but. We'll be on top of it. Yeah. Thanks to Joey and his coordination and the amazing team of people that he puts together to put up a smooth event. We're going to be fine.
Yeah, and that goes for the board. We'll invite you guys over somehow. I got content to cook and breakfast at that deal, so we'll have breakfast at the hospitality room if you guys would like to come.
Yeah. We have a pretty good reputation with our hospitality room in Othello.
Good.
I do have a question about like parent perception. So I know that there's a probation and suspension. How do parents perceive this? Is this helping more? From personal experience, it's when I was in high school, it's all of a sudden you're not eligible. Your parents freaking out. They're calling the athletic director and the coach and telling them off. Like, does this help with that? Has there been like a change in that? Kind of, I don't know, like what's your experience been with kind of having this probation, like you said, the communication with the students and stuff like that?
I guess the best way to describe it from parents, the perspective would be supportive. And what I mean is, the parents, in my conversations with parents, when we've had to have these conversations around probation, which it's basically a warning. It's been very supportive, and the parents that I've had to speak to about it have been, they've taken a lot of ownership with it, with their kids. And it's been a good, valuable lesson. And I think, you look at the data again and how that number's decreasing around suspensions, and the accountability, the students know that accountability is there and it's going to be checked every week. I think it's been very helpful in the conversation with parents. I guess the best way to sum it up has been supportive, and where they're helping to take ownership for their kids to make sure that they're toeing the line so that they can be there to support their teams.
I'm glad to hear that, just like I said, from personal experience, right? So it's nice to see we're progressing in a positive way, to see like more parent interaction and parents knowing.
I mean, I have a student athlete, and I can say that the accountability this year is tenfold what it was last year, with her being able to just get away with just typical teenage stuff, like my grades are fine, but really I have an F. She can't get away with that anymore, and Carlos has done a really, really good job of not only holding her accountable, but all of our student athletes to say, like, you can't miss school just because you're tired. Like, if you miss, you can't practice. Like, if you miss practice, you can't play in your game. And in ways where I feel like kids can be manipulative, maybe it's just my child, to get out of doing hard things sometimes. And Carlos has taken away that avenue of sloughing off. And I, for one, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, the reality is we're trying to prepare our kids for the real world.
Yeah, of course.
And if you always show up to work late, how do you think your evaluation is going to look? You want to be reliable, not unreliable. I think part of it too also includes the importance of communication in advance. For example, when our team went to, I think it was OMAC, and that's a long drive, right? I recall the kids not coming home until about midnight that night on a school night, but they had to be in school the next day on time so that they could practice to be eligible for the game the next day after that. And so when you communicate these in advance too, hey, just a heads up, and the coaches have been immensely helpful too to communicate that. I think that advanced communication with the kids and the coaches helps to minimize these opportunities that could lead to probation too. So a lot of kudos to the coach too to help us keep the kids in check.
That's good.
So when a student is put on probation, their parents are notified?
Absolutely. So the process for that is that once they're identified, I prepare formal letters for each student who is on probation, and then I communicate that via Parent Square as an attachment, attaching that letter to the Parent Square message to the family, where it goes to both parents if they're there, and the student, and then I do everything I can to meet with the kids and advise them too.
Just one other piece of data from the district office perspective. Over the last 5 years, I'm sure that John Wiseman, Dr. Meek, myself, we typically will hear appeals when folks, you might get an upset parent here that wants to meet with someone immediately, and if one of the three of us is available, we'll meet with them. My kid can't play tonight. He needs to play tonight. Hey, they said my daughter can't go to the dance competition, that she needs to go, right? I don't think we've had we've had one this school year where someone came in to share that kind of concern, and I think it ties directly to the level of communication that families are getting, because we also from time to time would hear from coaches. They might get a statement from the principal or the athletic director to say these kids can't play, and they say, well, I'm going to go talk to the district office. I'm going to send them an email. That hasn't really occurred much this year, and so I think that's, again, other evidence that the level of communication that's happening between the coaches and the athletes and the administrators and the coaches is it's doing what it's supposed to.
And if you'll go to the last slide, I was surprised to see this number when I first reported on this a couple months ago, but the idea of having upwards of around 145 to 150 coaching positions, this includes all of our contracted coaches for every season between both schools, including volunteers. And so that's a lot of coaches, but I think we don't have any problem filling them. We have really good people coming out to help our kids. And so having this number and the people who want to do this for our kids is something to be proud of. We have an amazing coaching staff. I'm proud of the people that we have. And our kids are growing, they're getting better. And, you know, in some other areas, we're still very, very competitive. And so we had a pretty strong fall. We're improving this winter, and compared to where we were last year, and I'm looking forward to spring. Any questions at all about athletics? And I'll do the best I can off the top of my head.
So for students, do you like when they become ineligible, like do you like directly tell them like, oh, you're not like able to play at all? Like you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm
yes, so what I would do is I would communicate with them electronically first, and then I print a hard copy of that letter, and then I do everything I can to go out and actually meet with them to advise them through it. It's not just a notification. What I try to do for the kids is talk about what they can do to help themselves. So it's a support plan too, and that's half of it. I think that's the more important half, to be honest with you. Notification is one thing, but what are we going to do about it? So let's talk about some ideas to help yourself out.
So I will say one thing that I heard from students is that there would be some wrestlers and basketball people who would talk, and they'd say that, so this is all student perspective, wrestlers would say, oh, why could he play and I become ineligible? I have like really good grades, but I become like absent or tardy one day and I can't play. But the other like basketball varsity player has like failing grades, is absent all the time, and still plays. So that's why I asked, like, do you like directly tell them, or I don't know?
Well, we use the data that we have that pulls directly from Skyward, where if a student has 2 or more Fs, there's a notification there. Or if the attendance falls below 90%, that's a notification there. Or if they have 2 or more referrals over a 4-week period, that's a notification there. So when I have the data, it's my responsibility to notify the kids if the data's there, and then support them with a support plan after that.
Well, we appreciate the information and data and the questions from and it's always important to share the student perspective. Appreciate you doing that and sharing that story. And thanks for staying tonight, Carlos, and taking us through that.
Yep.
And that's the final update from the superintendent informational items.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to our policy review, we have quite a few policies to go through your first reading, and then we will approve or not approve those at our next meeting. At this time, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment, Dr. Perez? Okay. We'll move on to upcoming events. On the 15th, can we get a roll call of who's going to be able to make it to that? It's the board workshop in Pasco. We'll be leaving, I believe we're meeting here at the district office at 3 p.m. Is that correct, Madi? Aaron?
Yes, I'll be attending.
3:15? Okay. Mariah, are you going to that? No? Okay. I'll be there. Birdie?
I'll be there, but I don't need a ride.
Okay. Zero?
Give me till tomorrow morning.
Okay. Are our student reps invited to that, or is that not a student rep thing? No? You're off the hook. Enjoy your free night. Then on the 19th, we have no school for Martin Luther King Day. The 22nd, we also have no school. And the 22nd in the night at 5 p.m. is our board workshop. Is everyone planning on attending that? Everyone's in for that? Okay, perfect. January 26th, we have our regular scheduled board meeting, except for it's not, because that's the city council, and so we don't know what we're doing yet.
I can make it work for noon. I can work from home that day.
Okay, so we could have the option of doing a lunchtime meeting if that works. Mariah said she can work from home that day. So just a heads up, whatever you guys decide. February 3rd, we have our preschool site visit, and February 9th, a regular scheduled board meeting. I will not be here February 9th. So, Aaron, if you're here, you'll conduct the meeting.
TBD. Due date that week. Really? Yeah. So
And we might have a baby board member that week?
Yeah, so we'll see.
Ooh, okay. I guess as it gets closer to the 9th, make sure we have a quorum if I'll be gone, and then maybe we have a baby that week. Does anyone have anything to add? Oh, I want to add to the upcoming events, Spirit Week at the high school starting on the 2nd of February. Hopefully we can attend something. You guys are always gracious enough to invite us to Husky Olympics and all the things. So if you have an event you'd like to invite us to, we'd love to come.
Yeah.
Great. And now we'll move on to the board self-assessment.
Just a second. Isn't the Amazing Shake all school things coming up?
Friday.
That's Friday.
That's Friday? Okay. Great.
Yeah, that's this week, Friday.
There's someone back there volunteering in the Amazing Shake. My sister.
Ooh, oh, great. What grade are you in? 7th? Well, good luck. Okay, we will move on to our board self-assessment of the meeting.
Thank you for those updates today. It's great to hear about things that are directly affecting the kids' everyday goings on. So,
Thank you, Kat, for that update for the high school and how that's going. I greatly appreciate that.
I just want to say I like the recognitions a lot. It's nice to appreciate our staff, our people, so I really enjoy that.
Well-planned agenda. Do we have anything else? Actually, I would also like to say thank you to Aaron and Pete for your debrief from the Ledge report. That was very valuable information, so thank you for going to that conference and then coming back and giving us all the details. Okay, at this time, the board will recess into executive session for 30 minutes to discuss the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the